All right. So Q4 is around the corner. We're talking 2024 Q4 sales tactics in Meta.
I think the biggest theme I've heard on calls this week with Meta reps and brand owners is CPMs. Some of the brands we work with that have like primary audiences that are female between 40 and 60, like those are the highest CPMs right now. So it's kind of led to a lot of discussions on tactics on how do we mitigate high CPM costs. Obviously, like CPM isn't a North Star metric, right? Because like you could get $100 CPM yet still have a great ROAS just because Meta's on point with its targeting. But I think one of the themes that we've talked about a lot is like, all right, the bid pool has shrunk a lot, or it feels like it's shrinking. Really, there's just way more advertising budget in the auction. The system's being pressure tested. 20% of the available audience for conversion campaigns are already being tapped by all of these large brands, from conglomerates to small businesses. The idea is like, all right, how do we not just lower our CPMs, but target the right people and ultimately get more bang for our buck on the advertising side. So there's a few things we tried, tested, exploring, a couple higher funnel tactics, and then also a new one that Meta rolled out that I highly recommend is value rules. They just pushed this live on every account. It's been in development for the last 6 to 8 months and available through some alphas and betas. But yeah, value rules is one that we're seeing some pretty good success with on some of our like larger brands with a very specific target demo.
And is that how you go about lowering the CPM, or do you not even care about lowering the CPM? It's just about like sniper targeting.
Yeah, I'm not super concerned about lowering the CPM unless the brand doesn't have a ton of liquidity. Maybe it's a smaller brand and its ad budget is just not getting the volume that it needs to really develop the signal for targeting. With value roles, applying those rules on some of the larger brands, it's like the CPM's actually gone up, but our conversion rate's gone up on the cohort that we're applying the rule to. The conversion volume, the cost, like all of the key metrics for that cohort have gone up in a good way.
So let's go into that then. What are value rules for everybody who doesn't know, including myself?
Yeah, so value rules is Meta's answer to giving advertisers more control on where their ads spend and bid on. So when ASC rolled out and when the Advantage suite, like Advantage audiences, for instance, Meta's recommendation was, oh, don't control the audience, just let Meta decide who's gonna purchase. Obviously, that's problematic for a number of brands, as you can imagine why. But one of the things that, consistently happens is it just goes after the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest conversion. It doesn't really lean into the cohort that you're necessarily trying to hit. So value rules is a new setting that you can apply on the back end of your ad account, meaning in your account settings, you can create various rules for where and how you want the system to bid. So for instance, one rule might be, hey, I want you to bid up 20% on females aged 25 to 35, but bid down 10% on females age 65 plus. You create
Interesting.
all of these different rules on the back end of your account. And then on the ad set setting, you can apply those rules to that specific ad set. So it's great if you have a lot of liquidity and you can measure over time and you can get a good read on like how that's actually working. But it's a new steering mechanism for getting your ads in the right cohort. You can apply it by platform, you can apply it by age, gender, a number of different parameters, which kind of they run on the background and it just gives the bidding algorithm more direction on what you're actually looking for.
It's so interesting because I'm going back to all the times I had this problem on an account. You'd have a campaign, let's call it like 10,000 purchases. It's something that's been at scale for a while. And you look at the analytics, and the problem is it's like overbidding on men, or it's overbidding on the 18 to 24 cohort when you want the 24 plus. So that's really interesting. I didn't know they did.
Yeah, we just ran a test with it on a brand that sells newborn and maternity clothes. And basically, what was happening is the ads were really trying to hit moms in their third trimester. That's our core demo for these newborn campaigns. But what kept happening is it was actually going after the grandmas that were buying the gifts for their daughters or for their grandchildren. And instead of just limiting the targeting to 20 to 45, like we instead applied a value rule on one of our higher spending campaigns, let it run for a good 2 weeks, 3 weeks, went back and did an analysis with Meta on like how that bidding shifted the delivery of that campaign and found that it got those ads right in the pocket with our target demo. ROAS actually went up, conversion volume in that target demo went up. Like all of the signs were green. That value rule that we applied was doing exactly what we wanted it to.
I guess another use case of that could be if you find it's the grandmas that are buying the clothes, that can adjust how you approach creative. You can say, okay, well, that's where this campaign's going. So let's not make creative with, a mom with a big belly waiting for the baby. Let's make it, are you expecting your grandchild? Anyway, that's
Yeah,
very cool.
exactly. And it's funny because you touched on the next lever that we would pull in this type of scenario is, okay, we need to make creative that's very persona driven to that grandparent that's buying a baby shower gift. That's a two. As a media buyer, I'm less of a creative. I spend time in the data. And so I love tools like value rules because it gives me more control on where our ads are delivering to.
Especially at a time in Meta when it feels like you've completely lost control of targeting and it's all just creative led and there's less importance on structure and targeting. So it's nice to they give you like a mini version of a steering wheel back.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I feel like they've rebuilt to the point where they're starting to introduce more and more options for advertisers to have that control back while still being able to leverage a- Andromeda machine learning mixed with Lattice to be able to really like still have the control that you want.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a whirlwind on meta targeting. If you've been a meta advertiser for the past decade, you've seen so many different ways to approach it. And I think now it's just completely different than what it was even a couple years ago.
It really is. And I think creative still is the new targeting. For years now, it's been banged over our head. But like now there's new tools at play from Meta for us to try to help that. One other thing we do is we're testing higher funnel events, is going back to the basics, back to old school. Hey, let's try optimizing for add to carts. I recommend doing it if you have an MTA because you want to actually be able to validate and qualify that traffic. But we ran a test over a promo weekend with a brand that found that those add to carts, and we ran it with Meta, those add to carts had a pretty incremental effect on the sales of that promo. And it was just a matter of layering it on top of what you're already doing, your conversion campaigns, as another campaign that just goes after that higher level event.
Yeah.
That's been working as well on some of the.
That one I think is so interesting. You explained it to me in a previous call that if you're only bidding for purchases and you're only going through for a pool of people that Meta believes is qualified, the reality is no one is really qualified to purchase until they see that one killer creative that convinces them and puts them from not interested in buying to I want to buy this product right now. And if you're only optimizing for purchase, you're only going for the lowest hanging fruit. And it's the same 20% that everybody's optimizing for. But with the right creative strategy, you can go to these lower funnel events and build up that top of funnel pool that you can then pull into like your purchase campaigns or retargeting campaigns.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess what we were able to find in running this test with Meta through advanced analytics was like there's a large cohort of sales that were to the add to cart campaign, but then came and purchased through a purchase conversion campaign later. Like maybe their first touch point was through the add to cart campaign at the beginning of the weekend, but by the end of the weekend, they were hit by a standard purchase campaign, and that's where the conversion happened. So a lot of times that attribution won't go back to that add to cart campaign. A lot of folks might look at it and say, oh, it's useless. It didn't have any impact, but really it did because it was driving that net new incremental person to the store to gain interest and ultimately buy the product.
There's a recurring theme in every conversation we have that if you're only looking at Meta's attribution, you're going to end up chasing your tail. It's like your pool continues to shrink because you're only chasing ROAS. You can't ignore all the prospecting that leads you into having like this fantastic ROAS on purchase campaigns or on retargeting.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we have to think of what it's built for too. There's a cohort that's the large brands that probably spend the majority of the money, but then there's a large group of brands and people that use Meta ads, and our junior advertisers are not very experienced, and we'll dive in and maybe they're only spending $20 to $100 a day. I think that there's elements of the ad manager that are built for that customer. So I think that's probably one of the things that they're having to balance from the UX side and from the product side is, okay, how do we serve both the customer that's spending 20 to $100 a day, maybe, but also the corporations that are spending millions of dollars a month. I mean, giving them the control they need while keeping it simple enough for the mom and pop shop to just go in and add.
Yeah, it'd be such an interesting product to work on.
Yeah.
But so we've talked about like how do you grow that larger pool? And then I think at some point we want to talk about retargeting, right? So let's say that you went for these top of funnel events, reach is the new ROAS, you just went hard on reach, and now we're coming into Q4. How are you approaching retargeting nowadays versus just like Advantage Plus, let it fly?
Yeah. I think one is really important to have your audience segments in your account settings very well optimized, meaning your purchasers, your customers, that list has a really good match rate. It's going back dynamically. Your engaged audience, that list, all those are just set up, ready to go. And then analyze the distribution on your campaigns and on your ad sets of new audience, engaged audience, previous customers. Like that's the first place to start and just figure out where it's indexing. And next, candidly, we don't run a lot of retargeting. If we do, it's under 10% of account spend, sometimes even less. Retargeting, just to clarify too, is meaning people that are in market in the funnel that haven't purchased yet, not retention, which we would categorize as previous customers. So just want to like that because both those terms get thrown around a lot. The way that we look at it is previous customers are retention. Remarketing is people that haven't purchased yet that are in the funnel that we're trying to get over. So from the remarketing side, we actually almost do none of that. We let Meta run that whole user journey. On larger brands that have big customer cohorts, especially if we're optimizing to new customer events or we're really focused on acquisition, we do layer in some very retention specific campaigns that are going after that customer cohort, whether it's lapsed audience, whether it's folks that bought within the last month, depending on what the product is. And then we'll decide like the certain segments that we want to run to. Really, it's different for every brand too. There's no kind of, smoking gun strategy that just like works well for retention. I think the biggest takeaway is just keeping it as clean and as simple as possible and making sure your audience sizes are large enough to allow the ads to optimize and find the right group of people.
Yeah. So you mentioned on some of the larger accounts, products that are selling really well, products that we would probably all know or buy, you made some retention specific campaigns. Is that what you said, or retargeting specific?
Yeah. So we do retention. So previous customers. Yeah. And really focus in on creative that speaks to people that are aware of the brand, that maybe purchased a product that already have that brand affinity. And then in addition to that, we'll just make sure that our division of prospecting versus remarketing is very clean, that funnel campaigns are truly top of funnel, that those exclusions are tight, the match rate's good, that new customer percentage is high, the new visit percentage is high, so that retention audiences, if you're running dedicated spender retention, that you can have a very clean audience pool. It's getting potential overlap from the other campaigns.
So is the reason you do that because you reach a certain size and it almost becomes more difficult to reach new customers than it does previously existing
Yeah.
customers?
Yeah, exactly.
That's almost tough for me to wrap my mind around, is that a brand can reach a certain size. I think about Nike. The percentage of people that have bought their product is more than the people that haven't.
Yeah.
Especially if you look at paid advertising. Like everybody that has access to like modern technology is going to own that product at some point. So it's interesting how you reach a size where the messaging changes. You don't worry about, I guess your messaging needs to be related to assuming people know the brand exists.
Yeah. Or very like, and we've talked about this before, but performance marketers get so stuck on like hacky ads that just have a good hook and are almost via sale. They're going to pull you in and sell you right away. And it's, well, yeah, maybe that works if nobody knows who you are and you have a product that is, unique, and it's a Dollar Shave Club when it came out. Like that was a new concept, a new thing. And they had that banger VSL ad that just sold you. By the time you were, through that ad, you'd laughed, were engaged, you were ready for it. I think now it's like, for brands that are operating on that bigger scale, it's really important that they're thinking about content that's aspirational, creating connection, creating genuine connection through the right triggers that are going to really commit that consumer to being loyal to that brand over their competitors when they're in the shopping aisle making their decision on which product they're going to buy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. So how do you approach it for a small brand versus a large brand? Do you focus on like incremental reach of new customers if they're large, and if they're not, you just reach as the new ROAS, just blast it out?
Yeah, if they're not large, they're generally more constrained by their performance marketing metrics, meaning they need to hit really specific targets with the dollars that they're going to deploy. So you can do less brand, less aspirational. It has to be the quick conversion ads. I think personally, that's a lot more difficult than brands that are at scale. Almost like the
Yeah, I was gonna
larger you
say, do you
go, the
find it
easier
easier to
easier it
like
gets.
right, yeah, the easier it's almost easier to navigate these huge accounts than the smaller ones.
Yeah, and it is, just candidly. It's easier from the sense of you have more data, you have more history, you have more you can do. There's not a lot of figuring out that you have to do. Like you can make pretty calculated decisions with the data that you have and pretty optimal outcomes because your sample size is great and you're
Right.
you're able to get in a sense like stat sig on your projections so that you can make good decisions. The smaller brands it's that are still trying to figure it out, they don't have that history of landing page development and CRO and email and offer and branding and all of the things that go into building a nine-figure company that have generally take years to develop and refine. Like smaller brands generally aren't at that place yet. And the advertising side is just one piece of that bigger picture. So it can be hit or miss a lot of times for the
For the
performance
smaller
team.
brand, there's so many little things that could go wrong if your landing page isn't properly optimized, or if your follow-up email sequence isn't great. Like you could miss out on a lot of the retention revenue that these larger brands have already baked in.
Yeah, exactly. We have a similar case study right now of a brand, consumer product, very like unique branding, good branding, but low AOV. But it's a consumable, meaning it's a consumable that people will, once they buy it, they're going to repeat. It's a toothpaste brand, right? So it's like once people pick their toothpaste, they stay with that toothpaste. So yeah, the AOV is really low and the repeat purchase rate is decent. But really what we're looking at is, okay, how good is this brand's retention marketing to make sure that those people that buy that toothpaste are purchasing it again as soon as they're out? Because for us, like it'll be break even or better on ads in a good scenario with a $35 AOV.
Right.
But that's okay because they're buying a customer for potentially for life if they can get it right. So with that, it's like their team has to have all the other parts of the marketing engine firing on all cylinders and very well optimized for the ads to actually be successful. Like personally, I would want to see that repeat purchase rate at like above 60% to justify if I were running the brand. I would say that repeat purchase rate needs to be 60 to 80% for us to justify like acquiring customers at a rate that we're going to be actually realistically going to be able to get them out on Meta nowadays.
Yeah. It's interesting when you think about it of distribution of effort, because it's going to be so different for different brands. Because if you have a product that's $300, you're going to place a lot of effort on acquiring that customer. And just brand awareness is going to be so important. But if in the example you're talking about a $35 AOV, so much of your effort is going to be on trying to get repeat buyers. That's where a lot of your marketing messaging is going to come in.
Exactly. And it's where that so much thought has to come through or go into that process after purchase to the customer experience side, to the retention marketing. It's great though. It's almost like those brands can exist if they have that LTV and that quick payback cycle. The brands that are really hard to support with paid ads are the ones that have a low AOV and it's a one-off product purchase.
Right. Right.
And those are the ones that nowadays, it used to be the Shopify drop shippers were like filled with these style products. It's nowadays that's really hard to achieve unless you're just going after like organic UGC viral content.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. You can still do it, but you're probably not scaling it through Meta that effectively.
Yeah, exactly. You're not buying revenue back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we're coming up to the end of August. I know a lot of your time on your larger accounts has been on just building up your total pool of people that you can remarket to. Is there a time that you start to shift that and think about tapping that large group of people that you've been building up all year?
I think a lot of it happens organically in the sense of they're already in market, they're in funnel. When they're going to start purchasing, we're ready. Like the ads are going to catch them. As far as going back to the remarketing piece, like there are scenarios where we run a special initiative that we want to intentionally remarket those people to. So one might be like the use of reminder ads to build up to a sale or build up to a product launch. We'll throw an ad set in there that is targeting everybody that saw that reminder ad or watched the video or engaged in the reminder, just to make sure that those people are getting remarketing. So we do run that. It's just on a very case by case basis. So going into Q4, like we're looking at, like, Meta's shared some stats recently on like last year's consumer shopping trends, what they're projecting this year, and like when the conversion rate spikes, when the volume picks up, when the CPMs low. You're the standard like yearly charts on like how holiday season is projected to play out given the when the dates fall in the calendar and current consumer shopping behavior. And so one thing that I think is important to know is like consumers this year and even last year, like they start that buying journey earlier and earlier. And so just being ready, like we have brands that are very gift focused. So I mean, we're deploying the gift messaging like in September. We're gonna start triggering the gift season early, just to be front and center of that that purchase cycle. So yeah, I think it's really about adjusting your messaging at the right time on your creative.
Right.
Like,
It's adjusting your messaging, not necessarily your targeting. That piece is gonna happen more organically.
yeah, and I think too, there's ways to like trigger that gift seasonal moment, like going full holiday on it. Like your creative doesn't need to have Christmas trees and snowmen on it, like in September. However, like your UGC content could say things like, "Oh, this is the perfect gift. I got it for my boyfriend." It doesn't have to speak to the holiday, but it can speak to the like gift element of whatever product. So like having ad sets that maybe BAU is you're targeting your consumer, they're buying for themselves. But
Mm.
maybe in September, you start rolling in creative that's saying, "Hey, you buy this for somebody else. Here's, a great," basically changing the angle at the way that you present the
And
product.
it can be really subtle, but people will feel it subliminally.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be direct. "Hey, buy your Christmas gift. It's time." Like it just
Yeah.
very subtly like stirring that gift related messaging into the creative pool.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Excited to keep chatting as we get into Q4.
Yeah, yeah, we'll be on deck ready to let you know how it's going.
Totally. Totally. Awesome. Cool. Thanks for the conversation. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, man. We'll see you.
Thanks, everybody.